So how do you actually start scripting? Because we are going to build up to doing something soon. So did everyone download the files? Cool. If you've got a recent download of Fiji, you can launch it in Fiji any which way. File scripts, you can just hit the left square bracey thing and it will pop open this window. If you've got a new version, it'll have like autocomplete, which is really useful. So if you start typing in there and it doesn't have like a, trying to finish the word or the variable that you're typing, go and download a new version of Fiji because your life will be so much easier with that. So this thing is your IDE, integrated developing environment, and it supports lots of languages. You want to make sure that the IJ1 macro is the one that's highlighted. That's the default if you have a new version. Yeah, so if you want, there's a link to the documentation page. But as I said, in the new Fiji coding environment, as you start typing a command, it has a link that goes straight to the definition of what that command is doing, which we'll see in a second. Okay. Has everyone opened Fiji? Everyone got some kind of scripting window open? Cool. So before we go into a deep dive of the first exercise, we do have to kind of know how to write and begin to write and some basics syntaxes. If you've got the new version of Fiji with the new scripting environment, it color codes everything. Whereas like if you're running ImageJ, it's just a text window where it's plain black. So the color coding helps you kind of see anticipate what's happening and what things are. So comments, really important. We'll cover this later, but you always want to make sure that you explain what you're doing. So you are typing, in this case, this macro prints a number and some text. Cool. So number to print equals 5. So this is the variable, and a number here is in blue. The text to print, and then I've put the inverted commas and said hello world. That's pinky purple because strings are colored like that. So that's really useful. And then we are going to print, the number to print and print this thing. And print is yellow or orange, gold. It's a built-in command. And the arguments that we give it are usually black and brackets are red. And we end every line with a semicolon. And the semicolon is what kind of tells it, do all of this thing, then go on to the next thing or the next step or the next line and, parse all of that and then do what it says that you're putting in. Here we go. So yeah, double / the one-line comment, syntax for the end to execute the command. You're having an explicit value is blue. Pink is the string or array of characters, and gold is a function, and we'll cover that in the next bit. Functions. Functions are built-in commands that they don't really need an input. They can have arguments as well, and they can have multiple arguments. So if you ask Fiji to get the time, you don't need to tell it, get the time now. It'll just do it, get the time. And then it reports back the time. So same with like selection type. That'll tell you what kind of selection the user's drawn or yourself has drawn. So if you wanted to know, is it a square thing that's being drawn? Is it a freehand, a line? You can query it, and that will return a number. Like 0 is no selection, 1 square, 2 circle, etc. So if you ask in your scripts, draw a line because I want to run a line profile or a line scan, and the user draws a circle, maybe you want to put a catch in there that says that's a circle, not a line. Go back and draw a line, because otherwise, if you feed into the plot profile tool a circle, it's going to crash because it doesn't expect that, right? So, and then there's things with like single arguments. So the ROI manager is a command, and you can say count, and that will tell you how many things are in the ROI manager. So likewise, you might need that to run a loop over for everything in the ROI manager, run measure. So then you can get the area or something. You might also want to catch that says, if the ROI manager count is equal to 0, don't go and start looking for ROIs because there are no ROIs. So that's a use case for that. There's set slice. So if you need to go to a certain frame or a certain slice, you can tell it. So here I'm giving it a variable, and I've probably defined that somewhere else. But you could just say, go to slice 5. That's probably not good though, because if you open an image with 4 slices, it would crash. And then you can have multiple arguments. So if you want to run like a median filter, so you run median and then you have to define the size of it. Or if you want to do a Z projection, you then also have to tell it what type of Z projection. And then you can give it like complex ones where it's actually like Z project from here to here. This is the type. So you can have no arguments to many arguments. Excellent. So that should be pretty self-explanatory. That one obviously is going to go from there to 100. Okay. Everyone's okay with variables so far, and up to commands and arguments. That's all cool. Okay. Arrays are the next thing. We mentioned them previously, but this is how you actually would use them. You could say, empty array equals this new array of nothing. And because this is kind of the size that you'd give it after here. And so it just prints nothing. If you, and so here I'm using print empty array, and then that's what that will print. And then on the next line, I'm using a special command, array.print, and then naming my array. Do people follow that? Okay, confusion. So to be neat and tidy, I've given each of my things that I run the name. So empty array, print empty array. Down here, I say print array with 3 empty elements, and then that's array with 3 empty elements. People follow that? Okay. So this array, I haven't put anything in it, it's just empty. In this one, I say I want a new array that has 3 things. So it's going to have a table that's got 3 things. But I haven't said what those 3 things are, so it's just printing 3 zeros. In this example, I say array with 4 elements, and then I define them as the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. And I say print array with 4 elements, array with 4 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4. Everyone follow that? So you can kind of say this is an array and there's nothing in it. You can say this is an array with I'm going to put other things in it later, or no, these are the things that I want directly in an array. And then you can do tools with arrays, like you can concatenate them. So you can say, I've got this thing called a long array, and I want to stick array with 3 elements and array with 4 elements. So 1 and then the other. Combine them into one long list. And that's obviously going to be something with 7 elements, 3, 4, 7. And we've got those 3 zeros from up here. And then after that, we have our 1, 2, 3. So to print the whole array, we have to use this command. The array.print. And then you can use these, like say .length. So we'll cover this later because it's really useful. But if you said name of array .length, returns the length of the array, which in this case, long array, we go long array.length will tell you that it gives the answer 7 because it's got 7 things in it. So you might want to create a list of all the files in a folder and then ask, well, how many files are there? Because you're going to have to loop over each image. So you need to know the length of that list of files. So that's one way that you can use the length of the array. This is really useful, is this thing to say, I want an expandable array. Because maybe you don't know how big your table has to be. So if you just set this up in the beginning of the code somewhere, it will let you keep adding. But still only in one. So you're going to have like 5 things. Then if, oh, you needed 6, you can just add and tell it like, oh, in position 6, just add this, and it would do it. If you haven't enabled that, it would crash. So I think we're getting towards the exercise. Printing is another really, really, really important and useful thing. You'll come across this a lot, especially in the workshop and just in your coding thing. You want to always kind of print out stuff. So it can tell you, you know, I found 5 images, I'm working on this file, or you can use it to debug stuff like I got up to here before the code crashed, because sometimes you don't know where it's crashing. So it's really useful to print stuff and kind of just verbose, spit out what it's doing when and where in your code. So you might use this print with the braces. That's just going to print an empty line. If you say print and then a string like hello world, it will print that. If you you can define a string elsewhere and then say like print that variable, and it will work. You can have it print like it can resolve the argument and print it straight away. So you can say like print n slices, and it will give you the number. It won't print the word n slices or string. It will print whatever n slices equals. There's some special cases. You can say if you type in this / clear, then that deletes everything in the log window. So often my code is going to have that at the beginning, because I don't want all this junk every time I run. So every time you run, clean up your workspace. And you can print like a string and then add on like the n slices, and then it would actually print that. Some languages, you have to do all that outside, and you can only print kind of one thing at a time. And then I mentioned it earlier, but if we print into arrays, we need this special function because I guess it doesn't know whether you're printing the array or an element of the array. So if you say from that example before, array with 4 elements is this new array with the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, the integers 1, 2, 3, 4. If I print a defined string here, then I get that. If I say array.print that array, I get all of it. And if I say print, and then I have this array with 4 elements, braces number 1, well, what I'm asking it is, what's the second element of the array? Because remember, it would start at 0. So then it only prints the number 2. So you might have an array that's all of the file names in a folder. And then you're iterating through. So you would say, well, what is the current iteration file name? And that's how you would do that. And you'll see that in the scripts that we work on. I've given some printouts of these kind of cheat sheets. These are all the really common stuff. These are the stuff that'll come across in the workshop. So they're there, they're in the folder. I can't list every command that Fiji can do because it can do a lot. And there's new stuff being added all the time. And there's tricky ways you can do stuff. So these are the common ones that you'll come across. Yes. So then the first exercise, and the reason I've got that slide there is because you might want to go back and look at it, is to print stuff. Every coding thing starts with printing hello world. I don't really know why, but it does. So we're going to use the print commands in all its different ways. So I want you to print a string. So you can say whatever you want. You can use hello world. You want to also print a concatenated string. So you want to have some variable that's defined, and then you can hard code it. So the example here is my name is. So you can have a variable called my name, define it as a string, and then print my name is plus that variable name, my name. To print an integer, print a calculated integer, print a calculated float. So, decimal value, whole numbers. Create some kind of array. I'm just trying to be broad here, so I'm saying favorite cities or something. It doesn't matter, but I want to see that you can create an array and print one. and then print just the first element of that array. So in this example, there's an array that has 3 capital cities, and then we print the first one of that. You can copy these examples, you can pick your own, but have a go at doing that. Key is, remember that is print is your, the main thing for this exercise. And if you have questions, raise your hand and I'll come around, but otherwise I'll give everyone a few minutes and we'll go through the answers. So rather than have people watch me make spelling mistakes typing, that's horribly small. I have actually, you may have noticed, there's this exercise folder and there's the answer scripts already there, right? So rather than just give you a picture and go, oh, that's the code, you've got to type it out. I have given you the macro file there. Now, that's not the only way to do these, right? With scripting, there's often going to be many ways to get to the same kind of result. But we can see at the beginning, I've said, I want to get rid of everything in the log window. So if I just run this once, I've got all this stuff in the log window, right? So the first thing I want to do is get rid of it. So I'll show you a cool trick. If I select code and do run selected or Control-Shift-R, it will just run the selected code. So if I do Control-R, I work in keyboard shortcuts, I get everything runs from start to finish. Now I just want to get rid of this stuff. So I'm going to select all that bit and go run, and it gets rid of that. Does that make sense? So here we printed a defined thing. Then I said, I've got this username, that's the variable, and I populate it with a string, and then I print, still really small on your screen, isn't it? Is that readable to people? I can go bigger. Okay, that should be readable. So here I've defined it. Then I said print this fixed thing plus whatever the variable is. So it's going to resolve this and then concatenate it together and then print it all at once. That's why we have the brackets, right? It's order of operations type thing. So then I want to print an integer and a string. So I say this number plus, and then my string. Now I've put the space in here just so that it reads a bit nicer. If I didn't have that space and then run it, you'll see it just puts the space in. But if I put the space outside of the string, it goes back, right? Because I need the space is in that string, right? It's not, if I put a space after the number, that wouldn't do anything either. Because it's literally saying, stick this thing to this thing. It doesn't assume that you always want a space between things. So it's important that you put whatever you want in the string, right? Then I can do a calculation and I can also do other calculations and then add some variable afterward, sorry, a variable or calculated some variables and then add the string thing. If I want just an empty line, I can tell it to print that as an empty line. So sometimes you might want to just space things. So usually I would use this log window as like a record of events. So when I have a big script for a user, or an analysis pipeline, it would be usually at the top. When did I run the script? What's the name of the script that I was running? Depending on things, where was the directory of images located? Where did I put the output directory? And then it's like, I want opening image 1. What did it do? Did everything pass? How many nuclei did it find in image 1? And then it will say opening image 2. And how many nuclei did it find in that? So you might want to put spaces and some formatting things so that it's easy to read down the track, right? Rather than just big wall of text. Here I called this thing cities, and I have to say that it's an array first, and then I define the elements of that array. I print this, header, and then I print the whole array. And then I call one of the elements of that array to print.